Massive thank you to so many of the blustery Cape Town winter's evening. So to have so many of you here is a real privilege. So thank you very much. Please tuck in. There's plenty of pizza. There's plenty of wine. I'm just going to briefly introduce the evening and then briefly introduce our team and then hand over to the real belle of the ball, which is going to be Kieran. But just a note on the evening itself. And I mean it when I say tuck into the wine, tuck into the pizza, feel like you're at home. We feel there's so much hype and hyperbole and clickbait when it comes to AI right now. I mean, you can hardly open LinkedIn without being told things like, if you don't download this tool, your job's obsolete in 15 minutes, and rip marketing agencies and rip this industry and the next one, and then some guy showing you an automation he built. Now he's got a new SpaceX overnight, those kind of things. And we really want to try cut through that noise, because that stuff can make it seem way more overwhelming than it is. It can honestly create a bit of resentment and skepticism. So while we believe the technology is super, super powerful, and we think most businesses should be using it one way or another, we're trying our best to cut through the noise and we wanted to create an evening that feels a lot like you're at home in a lounge just listening to some cool stuff, and a bit of an antidote to all of that stuff. So that's what we're hoping tonight is going to be. We've tried to make this as general as possible. So you can't please everybody in a room. For some of you, some of the things are going to seem a little maybe simple at the beginning. For some of you, it might seem a bit of advanced, some of the things. But the goal is that you leave here feeling like, okay, this AI thing, this makes quite a lot of sense. I feel like I learned something. Now, you guys weren't very useful when we asked you to tell us what you'd like to get out of the evening. So I've got here that someone wants to learn, quote, ninja skills. Someone wants AI to replace themselves and become a millionaire. And then someone is here for the pizzas and bezos. So I can guarantee one of those three things. But what I can also guarantee is that you're going to get a really cool crash course on a tool called Claude, which I'll touch on in a second. We've put... Dude, sorry. One job. Wrong slide. We've put together, well, I say we, Danae from our team will introduce in a second, put together a very cool cheat sheet. We've sent it to you guys. If you haven't seen it yet, search your emails from, if you search Luma or cheat sheet or something like that, it came as a blast, I think, on Tuesday. And it's a website that really has a lot of the key terms and basic fundamentals. And this actually could be quite a cool resource for you guys to use and to almost take with you afterwards. So a lot of the key terms that you're going to hear a little bit about from Kieran are going to be explained. And hopefully it's something that you're welcome to share this if you feel it was useful, because it is quite a nice resource. So to very briefly introduce, before I hand over to Kieran, to introduce Kwanda generally. So Kwanda is an applied AI company. So in a sentence, we help other companies implement AI in an effective way. We do that by looking at their workflows, trying to understand where the bottlenecks lie, trying to understand where the inefficiencies are, and then we work with them to help bring AI tools and AI to their business to try unlock some of those bottlenecks. Often, the way we do that is by embedding one of our engineers into that business, 1 day a week, 2 days a week, because in our opinion, to really implement AI effectively into a business, you really have to know how that business works. You have to understand their workflows, you have to understand what goes on under the hood, and then you can start bringing AI into that company. So that's how we work. And then a note on the team. So it's Kieran and myself, and and Danae over there. Here we go. Walter got hired yesterday by us, so he's no longer open to work, but we haven't updated his picture. Anyway, so this is the team. We are. It's exclusively engineers, all with either data engineering or there's some experience in data engineering and machine learning, other than myself. So when they say you should never be the smartest person in the room, I'm at no risk of breaking that rule at our team meetings. And then our engagements very often go towards using Claude for that business. So it's not the only thing we do, but it's what we're focusing on tonight. It's kind of been the natural and organic vertical that's shaped in our business. Because I think I always say every company has an AI policy, but for many of them it's using ChatGPT, the free version. And many of their staff are what's called shadow AI use. So we try to help you bring a unified way of bringing AI into your company, a controlled way, a way where everyone's outputs start looking the same. And for many businesses, that looks like effectively implementing Claude. We believe it's the best productivity tool right now. I'm not saying there aren't others, there are, but we also think always trying to be on the latest tool, using the latest thing, there's diminishing returns to that because you're kind of jumping around. Rather stick with something embedded, work on it, get it working in your business properly, and we help you do that. We help you bring a unified strategy to your company. Often means embedding Claude. Enough about me. It's not about me, enough from me. You've all heard enough from me this evening as well. I'm going to hand over to Kieran. So Kieran's got plenty of experience in this kind of a thing. Most notably, spent 4 years at Explore AI and at times leading their technical training department. So he's got plenty of skills in doing these kind of workshops. He does have a half-decent sense of humor. So without further ado, over to you, Kieran. Enjoy.
Thank you. Well done. Let me just turn this on. Right, good evening, everyone that I haven't spoken to already. I had Claude knock this up a couple of hours ago, so I'm looking forward to what I present tonight. Okay, so a bit about the format before I get into the details. So we thought long and hard about, is this a guided session? Do we walk around helping you do prompts and build cool apps and sell your business for high multiples by tomorrow morning? But it's too slow to do it like that. There's going to be problems. Some people on the free version, some people not. Some people might not have Claude at all, that sort of thing. So what it's going to be rather is I'm going to run through the topics with a whole lot of demos embedded in them. Try and watch along. It'll probably be like 45 minutes, I expect. And then if you've got your laptop, you're welcome to open it afterwards. The Kwanda team is around, the 6 engineers, and then me and Chris at the bottom of the list, and they can all help you. We can all help you answer questions. I want to do X, Y, Z. How might I do it? What feature do you think is best for this use case? And if the team has been sufficiently trained, which will be a big test for Walter, having joined just yesterday, the right answer will be, well, I can certainly help you with that if you engage Kwanda on a 6-month retainer. So that's what it's going to look like. And I'll just roll through some of the Claude features. I'm going to have to jump around a bit like between screens because I've got a deck here, but a lot of what I want to show you is obviously in the Claude desktop app. So a bit about, Chris described what we do for businesses, I guess from a high level. And I think just to put some more detail to that picture, we have a strong belief that every person in every business needs to be an AI native person working in an AI native business. And that's a term that you hear a lot about these days. I think there's a lot of sort of fly-by-nighters, freelance, AI implementers, people who will promise you an N8N workflow and then you'll never see from them again, sort of thing, hear from them again. And what we think is that the days of boring, laborious work that you don't really want to do are probably behind most knowledge workers, or at least in the next 6 to 12 months probably will be. And that if you haven't already commenced with the transition to what the future of your own work life will look like, your daily work will look like, that we can certainly help you to get started on that. So we think that if you leave with nothing else tonight, it will be a picture of what a business or what your role in a business can become if you are adequately equipped with AI tooling and knowledge and the resources and the ability to, I think one way I like to put it is to use systems thinking to break things down into little steps and say, how might I describe this to a machine, and therefore how can I do away with this process or this task completely. So just to give you a little bit of an example as to what I think an AI native business looks like, it's useful to understand what businesses are today. And I think that what a business typically is today is a group of humans that operate at the center of something with machines and tools around the periphery. The humans talk to each other, they exchange information very slowly. It goes via email or by 11 people wasting 11 hours in a 1-hour meeting, for example, when you aggregate things. Someone might be on leave. There's different versions of an offline docx document or an XLSX, and no one knows what's up to date. And information essentially is flowing at the velocity that a human is able to feed it through the business. It's very inefficient. And if you've ever dealt with a business like we all have, and felt like this is such a simple request, how could it take 2 weeks? When you simply look at your own role in a business, you can often understand why. You know, like I had to ask one coworker, and then they had to ask the boss, and they said no, and IT said no, that's a security risk, and then you're in this mess. So you end up with this very slow workflow of like, ask a simple question can take several steps, iterations, time, people are on leave, you know, you ask the wrong thing. That's what businesses look like today. And we think that the AI native business is an inversion of that, where at the center are not humans, but machines or systems, processes that are not necessarily always AI driven, but certainly can be AI built, because AI, just to be absolutely clear, is not always the answer. It can be overkill in many situations that are sort of simply solved by a repetitive piece of code or an application. But in essence, the AI native business has at its core a set of a data layer, a knowledge base that everything flows into from all of the systems and all of the humans operating in that business. And humans operate on the periphery, interacting only with each other at the water cooler, hopefully, and with other businesses, where the important thing is to maintain relationships, because that's what humans really are good at. I heard a great example the other day of, you know, if you had an Excel spreadsheet with just, let's say, 20 rows by 20 columns, and all of them were filled with formulae, and you would expect that those formulae to calculate at the rate that you could refresh that spreadsheet. If you changed a value in another tab, they would all recalculate accordingly. And if just one of those cells, of those 400 cells, for example, was computed by a human, the whole process would take like hours longer to compute, right? Because of the human. So it's I guess it's a little bit of a nihilistic, dark way of saying, you know, we're probably the slowest part of a lot of processes that we take part in these days. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Let's get out of the way of the boring work and let the machines do what they are good at. So we're going to show you through the course of the evening, or this presentation at least, how you, armed with a general purpose AI agent, which is Claude, can interact with your individual tools, email, meeting notes, calendar, invoicing systems, project management tools, task management, all that sort of thing. You can interact with them individually with your AI agent, but also via some sort of centralized knowledge hub. You can talk to us about this afterwards. We've got a lot of ideas about this AI brain thing. We're actually building one at Kwanda, but it's not the subject of this evening's talk. And that if you can strive towards this sort of setup in your own business, it's going to be a much more fun. You end up prompting and asking questions, and you know, a report that might have taken a week and several colleagues of requests previously, it might take a couple of minutes to complete these days. So to give you an idea of where we're working, I'm going to start with the end product, and we're going to sort of work not backwards from it, but with the end in mind. And we found that one of the slowest processes at Kwanda, getting Kwanda off the ground, was that our velocity of the sale of the Kwanda part of the sales cycle, meaning we meet a client, understand their needs, send them a pitch, was hamstrung by our ability to put together and consolidate all the information for a proposal to send to that client in good enough time that they haven't, you know, lost interest, forgotten, or gone to another supplier, for example. Not only the time aspect, but also the precision aspect of, like, you might have several emails with them, you might have had a call with them in real, or a meeting with them in real life, a couple of calls that have been taken, AI note taker, read or not. And there's a whole lot of information that you need to consolidate into what you put into a proposal. Just in the case of a proposal, it's the example we're looking at here, that you might have forgotten or otherwise not known how to track. And so this was one of the first things that I tried to automate at Kwanda. And through the different features of Claude that I'm going to take you through this evening, we will be able to generate this proposal that I'm going to show you now in PDF form from all of those different input sources that I spoke about. So email, meeting notes, calendar, any chats with the team that might have happened on Slack or Google Chat or Teams or something like that. So this is a dummy business, Northfield Retail. You'll see this quite a lot this evening. This is the business that I'm going to use, and I've created a whole lot of dummy information about. And this is roughly what a Kwanda proposal looks like. It contains the sections. What are we going to do in this work, over what period, what will be delivered when, and then these fees, which are very handsome, if you don't mind me saying, and obviously mates rates for tonight, and then some timelines at the end. And the information, the sources that need to be considered to build up a proposal like this, we found it taking like 4 to 5 hours of work across several humans, but typically split across multiple days. Like you know, Chris and I are balancing several dozen plates at a time, and you can't get to this in one long chunk of work. So this was a good thing to automate. So that's what we're heading towards, and I will sort of slowly eke out the different input sources and automations involved in getting there. A couple of characters to be aware of to make your interpretation of what I take you through a little bit easier. These are going to be partially the data sources that we draw on from Claude. I'll go through them. So Granola is an AI note taker that we are huge advocates of and should have asked for a referral system from many months ago, because we've helped so many businesses implement it. It's great because it doesn't join your calls. I'm not here to promote Granola. I just want to indicate that that's what we use to take our meeting notes, to transcribe our meetings. And when I refer to Claude being connected to Granola or Claude being connected to our meeting note taker, that's what I'm talking about. Gmail, you'll all understand. Drive, you'll all understand. In fact, let me not be so flippant. You might be a Microsoft user. Gmail is what you use to send and receive emails if you use Google Workspace, which we strongly recommend. And Drive is a version of SharePoint, or of OneDrive if you use Microsoft Personal, or of SharePoint if you use Microsoft Enterprise. Google Chat is like Teams or Slack. Whisper is a speech-to-text transcription tool that I'm going to use quite a lot. So I hold down a key on my keyboard, and when I speak, it transcribes what I've said very accurately into text. It's an absolute, we should actually put it in this cheat sheet, because it is a serious cheat code. Because instead of you being like limited or hamstrung by your ability to type, which most people are not very good at, you can simply just talk and wax lyrical into your computer, and your prompts end up being longer. And whatever you've been told about prompt engineering over the last couple of years is probably not true. Basically, the more detail in your prompt, the longer it is, the better your results are going to be. So I'd strongly recommend something like Whisper. There are free versions. I can tell you about a couple of them afterwards. But if it seems like I'm standing up here talking to someone, that's what's happening. Xero is our accounting system where we generate and send invoices from, which will come into play a bit later. Trello is a task management system, which is laid out in what's called a Kanban board. Not everyone uses this view for task management, but it's quite a nice sort of chronological. A task or a ticket moves from column to column like this as it's taken care of, and different systems like Notion or Asana or whatever implement this in different ways, but you can tag people, you can make comments. So that's what we use to keep track of our tasks, and that's going to come into play later. And then Northfield Retail is the fictitious client in question. And I also forgot to say that it would be cool if this was interactive, and there was a question every now and then.
Just a question on Whisper. How is that different to just recording it straight into like Claude or ChatGPT when you just record a long prompt?
I guess it's the same. It's the same, except that Whisper works wherever you can put a cursor on your computer. So this blinking cursor here, this over here, if I open WhatsApp and I try to type a WhatsApp message, I go to Gmail, like wherever you are, as long as there's a cursor blinking there, after I've released the transcription key, it will put the text that is recorded there.
You might use Whisper to actually record into ChatGPT or
Yeah, I use it as a layer to do my prompting. Yeah, it's got like a. It's got like a post-processing layer, so it does the raw transcription, which looks quite rough with ums and ahs and stuff, and you never see that. And then it post-processes that into something very clean with bulleted lists and. Yes, Adia.
I'm actually a new Granola user thanks to Chris. It doesn't do like the cards very well. So is there anything that's like remotely similar to Granola where
Usually does it very well.
usually is there AI product that is equivalent but actually handles languages, different languages?
So I don't know the answer immediately, but I think I know where to look for the answer, which is with a tool called, for example, there's another one I've been trying called Handy, where this is the problem with taking questions. You can go off track very quickly.
You can take it offline.
But what Handy does, which is quite different, is that it doesn't prescribe a model like Whisper. You pay Whisper $12 per person per month or whatever, and then they've chosen their model, whatever it uses, their transcription model. And that's the reason it probably is not good at Afrikaans, because it doesn't have a model that's trained on Afrikaans. But here you can choose your different model, and it downloads it to your computer, and the model runs locally, and it ends up being much faster. But I wouldn't be surprised if, well, you can see some of them actually list the languages that they're good at. I wouldn't be surprised if there is a model that is good at Afrikaans, and you can even bring your own one. So that would be one way around it. Yeah. It's very customizable, Handy. It actually works quite well.
The Handy is for running the local models.
It is exactly what Whisper is, right, in that you can choose an online model as well, but you can also bring your own model, in which case it would be free and more private and secure because your data is not sent anywhere. Yeah. There was a question, Justin? Okay. I know Chris told you guys to ask questions if no one else was, but it's okay. Okay, so we got the cast of characters. Right, let's get into Claude. So let's take a look at Claude. And I believe a few people here have not used Claude at all, but I think it would be safe to say that most of you have used some sort of LLM, probably ChatGPT or Gemini. And the way that Claude has gone is that it's separated into three areas. There used to be three tabs over here that said Chat, Cowork, and Code. It's now Home and Code, and the Chat and Cowork distinction is made over here in your prompt field. And so the first point is to distinguish or disambiguate Chat from Cowork from Code. So Chat is, and I'll liken it to the way that you would speak with a colleague or a coworker for different types of tasks. If you're chatting to someone, it's typically like a question-answer, question-response type thing. It's fine if you ask one question and get one question in response. You're not looking for a lengthy task to be executed and so on. That's what Chat is for. So these big models ship with a whole lot of built-in knowledge that you can simply ask of it. They've been trained on the entire written corpus of all human text, basically ever, that was accessible, and some of it which wasn't, in Anthropic's case, illegally.
More like a search engine.
Yes, and it is more like a search engine, and then they actually have search engine features now as well, where they can search the web. So that's, you ask it a question, you want to get quick knowledge. Google is seeing a lot of shift of its traditional search queries to LLMs in this fashion. So they're actually now doing this on Google searches as well. You'll see the AI mode come up. So that's what Chat is for. Think of it as like simple response. If you're chatting with a coworker, you're not looking for anything in detail. You ask them a question, they're going to give you an answer. Cowork is one level up. I like to think of it as, how would you speak to a coworker if you were asking them to complete a task for you? There'd be certain things or formats that you'd need to present the information to them in. You'd need to tell them what the inputs are, where they need to go looking for any information, what steps they need to take potentially, and what the output needs to look like. What deliverable do you actually expect from them? And that's what Cowork is good for. So it's for complex multi-step tasks that wouldn't simply be completed in a single chat response, and they might take multiple turns, and that Claude needs to decide at every step how it should act, what tool it needs to use, whether it needs to use its own memory or go and search the web or look in your Google Drive or something like that in order to complete your request for you. So Cowork, you can think of it as a coworker, it can do tasks for you. And then Code is, if any of you work with developers or coders, you can think of them as the people you go to if something needs to be built, right? Or if you need to have a very unpleasant conversation with someone, socially awkward. That's another good use of them. So code is in this case where you build stuff. The line is becoming more and more blurred between Cowork and code in Claude. Actually, Cowork is just like a disguised version of Claude Code. It's fine for now because for non-technical people, you don't want to see anything codey and see things like this, like main and work tree and local. Like a lot of that just doesn't make sense to people. So Cowork strips all of that out, but is actually capable of doing much of the same stuff. You would go to code if you wanted to build a prototype, show your boss, like, I think we should build this new app or this new area we should take our business in, or a nice dashboard in the form of a web page to show last month's sales figures or whatever it happened to be. So those are the three areas: chat, Cowork, and code. Chat is question response, quick, single things. Cowork is complex multi-step processes where you need to describe the inputs, the steps, and the outputs. And then code, sort of like Cowork, but even more advanced in that it can actually write code, build an application for you. Claude is getting so good at such a high rate that you can, even in the same request that you ask it to build something, ask it to make it live at a URL that you could then share with someone. And like in most cases, in 10 to 20 minutes, you'll have something that you can share with a colleague, friend, family member that's like not half decent, but like actually decent. So any questions there? Justin? Okay, so just to double down on these and then to give you an example of each. So chat we're all familiar with. In many of the slides coming up, I'm going to use an example prompt, which is this in this dark box over here, and that's what I'm going to narrate or transcribe into Claude. So the first example is to show chat. What does a retainer SOW usually include, and how is South African VAT treated on consulting fees? So let's go to a new chat. I'm going to choose a model called Haiku because it's the fastest one, and we want to get to responses very quickly here. So I realized that I was going to start recording that explanation as well. I'm going to start recording and then go back to the prompt because I've forgotten it. What does a retainer SOW or statement of work usually include, and how is South African VAT treated on consulting fees? So that was, you can see how fast that was, and that's an online model as well, so it's like very quick. So let's send that request off to Claude in terms of Haiku. So a couple of things to note here. It's answered my question directly in a single response. It may have searched the internet. No, it said without external research here in its thinking mode. So is that big enough for everyone? Should I just go? So this it's used its own training or memory for, and it's answered my question. Chris made the point earlier that Haiku does seem to be a bit more concise and bullet pointy in its responses. I've not noticed that. I guess I don't really use Haiku all that much. The cool thing about it, or not that cool if you're worried about like privacy concerns, but I think it's quite cool, is you can see for Kwanda invoicing to local clients, you'd include 15% VAT. So I don't ask it or tell it anything about Kwanda. It over a couple of days or weeks of usage, it being Claude, forms its own memory of you based on the information that you give it. You can actually go into the memory in the settings and adjust that or ask it to make certain changes. But it really just helps the responses be more tailored to you. It's hard for me to see how it's not extremely useful, despite the fact that I know that it's going to Trump's desk and that he knows exactly what I'm doing at Kwanda, and maybe that's why he hates South Africa so much. So that's chat. Then so there's a couple of features that Claude has sort of rolled out, and they roll out features at a ridiculously high rate, but there's a couple of them that enhance each of these different areas of chat, Cowork, and code. The first is connectors. So this was a good example of what Haiku did over here because it said without external research. Connectors are code-based, or let's say behind the scenes magic integrations between Claude and other tools. So we're going to start by just showing you Gmail. You'll potentially hear the word MCP thrown around. I'm not even going to get into the detail of what that is, but an MCP is just a connector. So if if you hear someone talking about connecting Claude or ChatGPT or Gemini to an external app, or you see it in your settings like this, connectors, they are typically talking about an MCP. An MCP is something that a tool provider, a software provider like any one of these, GitHub, Gmail, Granola, Linear, Trello, the MCP is something that they have to build themselves. Their own dev team has to build out an MCP in order for other companies like Claude, like your bank, for example, like SOWs, like whatever it is, and other LLM provider to connect to. So if they have an MCP, it can be connected to. And the example here is to go one step further than my previous request and ask Claude, find the latest email thread with Northfield and summarize where we left it. Find the latest email thread with Northfield Retail and summarize where we left it. So we should see something slightly different here in the thinking mode, in that it's going to use what are called tools. So it's already said found tools. So it knows that it's connected to Gmail, and that is probably a tool that it needs to use to go and find information about emails. So let's close thinking mode here and just see the response.
But previously, have you integrated anything?
So
The MCP.
good question. So it is already, Gmail's already connected. This is a live connection to my Claude. I didn't.
So if you want to connect, you have to get to this box.
You have to first go to settings and add connectors like this. You would browse connectors. Chris, I'll be with you now, and then you would see something like this. Microsoft 365 would be the one that you would.
Easier as this.
It's not as easy as that, especially with Microsoft. Because what happens here, no, it actually can be as complex with Google, but what happens when you as a user on a Claude team plan, or typically it would happen on a Claude team plan, when I click plus here, it doesn't just connect it. My IT administrator of the Microsoft account gets an application request from Claude, and they have to approve it, and they will see all the permissions that Claude is requesting of the application. Chris?
I think it's worth mentioning, you can also just ask in the chat, can we connect to my Gmail? And it will
Yes.
take you through this process.
Yes.
You don't necessarily have to go to settings.
Yeah.
Question, was that correct?
Uh,
That's not question, right?
I think that's right. I haven't done it from chat. So it wasn't a question. Okay. Wow. Build me up. Yeah. Patty?
So I use Claude Code a lot, all day, every day.
Yeah.
I still don't, because of open claw series, I still don't give it like Gmail access. Have you found giving it access to your inbox not that scary? Like it's not, you can't say fucking with your shit, but.
I think you can. Yeah. I mean, it's a risk appetite question, I think, in many cases. I mean, I'm not saying I'm better than you because I'm less scared, but almost every business, every client asks us this, what about, could it delete my emails? Could it, send a rogue email to someone? Yeah.
You guys haven't experienced that?
We haven't, and I can give a couple of reasons that give me confidence for using it with something like Claude as opposed to maybe like an open weight Chinese model, or I don't know. Actually, I guess that would be the alternative. And the reasons are that it seems like from testing that the frontier labs, OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, do quite a lot of what's called post-training on their big models, which prevent the model from doing nefarious things if asked for by like a nefarious actor. So if someone got a hold of your Claude account knowing it was connected to certain things containing sensitive information like your emails, Claude is often able to identify that request and will refuse to do it. It's not true 100% of the time, but there is some protection built in there. But I did see a tweet the other day from someone started out the new version of Codex, which is OpenAI's Claude Code competitor, and within a couple of minutes it ran some code that deleted like all their file, an enterprise database or something like that. So there is a risk, but I find that the fear goes away the more you use it. Like, I honestly don't know what the right answer is. It seems to be an individual appetite thing. Yeah, I'd appreciate any other views on that. Francesca?
Can't you have like, I don't know if this makes a difference, but the option to say like,
Ask me first. Like, only allowed to draft. Does that make any difference?
Yes.
If it goes wrong, it goes wrong.
Yeah,
But
so-
you do get that like draft only, check with me first.
Yeah. So that's another good point. So if we go and look at the connectors and the abilities, the capabilities, this section here, read-only tools, was until 2 days ago all of the tools or the features that Claude had with Gmail. So it could only read things. It couldn't do anything. It couldn't write anything or take any action in your mailbox. So it was inherently safe or safer. Two days ago, they added the write section. You'll see I immediately went on to always allow. Don't do what I do what I say. You can turn that off. By default, these tools start on a restricted mode, like you're saying, Francesca, where it's on needs approval. So before it is able to run this tool, it gets a little bit, I don't want to get too technical, but there's another built-in protection in that when a model's running a tool, which for example would be, let's use the updates a draft email or creates a new draft email. It's not the model doing that. The model is choosing to call a tool which is able to write an email. So this draft email tool is something that Anthropic developers have written and tested and I guess released into the world because they think it is safe. So it's like an application that they've released and the model is simply choosing to call it. If the model wants to do something bad with that, it can't because it's bound by the constraints of the tool that it's calling, if that makes sense. Like if you were thinking of telling a colleague to go and write an email in your inbox for you or draft an email in your mailbox, you are the LLM and their training is what they're going to do, right? So if they're inherently untrustworthy, you wouldn't ask them to do it. And that's my sort of parallel here. They wouldn't release a tool out into the wild. But you know what? Famous last words have been said many a time. And we're in a really rapidly advancing industry here. So never say never. Mark, you had a question? Oh, sorry.
I've been kind of fighting it for the last 2 days to get it to send an email, and it keeps on telling me no, I can't send an email. So I guess does it still not know that it can send emails, or am I dumb and not change the settings or something?
No.
I can't send an email. I'm like, figure it out, Claude, come on, send me an email. It doesn't do it.
I haven't experienced that with a built-in Claude connector, but yeah, over the last year I've had a lot of that, and the problem is that knowledge of what tools, we go back to connectors here. When I browse this list of connectors, and I want to add, let's say, this thing called Canva, okay, a common design tool, I'm enhancing or extending the capabilities of my Claude application, but that wasn't in Claude's training data. It doesn't know that it's inherently connected to Canva, right? Like that's something that's done after the fact. So the connectors ship, these are called connectors, and they ship with like a little bit of English language that says, use this tool when, right? So it's actually up to the model based on the request that you give it in the prompt to know when to invoke a tool based on what you say. And if you say like, let's draft a cool design, and you don't use the word Canva, for example, it's up to the model to decide if that is a close enough request to what the description of when to use that ships with the Canva connector is up to. So that's probably what's happening here. It's not aware of the fact that it has now write access to your Gmail. You can, yeah. So you can, I'll see that most often with the stupider models, as I call them, like Haiku. So you can upgrade to a cleverer model like Sonnet, an even cleverer one like Opus, or if you're extremely rich, and a cleverer one like Fable. Okay, yes, Justin.
I just want to touch on that. So Claude and Anthropic have designed the models to kind of reject you when you are doing something wrong. So for instance, saying send an email in Gmail, it knows it's not allowed to do that. It knows it can draft an email in Gmail. So by you saying send an email in Gmail, it's handicapping itself deliberately so it doesn't go and do something stupid.
Right, it's like a safety feature now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can get around it, go to the settings.
Yeah, so I mean,
You can.
yeah, well, I don't think they actually have the send feature built in.
Yeah, it literally cannot send.
Oh, you can't? Okay, well then I'm telling you the truth. Okay, back to square one.
Yeah. Now there's a lot that can be said about tool calling. I mean, the models become, well, these applications become so useful when you give them more tools that it's like, I mean, I'm just dying to, like, what more can I connect, you know? Like, so because the Gmail connector for the first 7 or 8 months of Claude Code's existence has not been able to send or draft emails, we've developed a separate connector. Actually, wow, this is a good time to talk about custom connectors. We put that there. So when, thanks, Claude. No, I'm kidding. I did actually make this presentation. So when something is not in this list of connectors, or the connector that is here doesn't have the feature that you need, for example, writing an email, like Rory said, as opposed to just being able to draft one. Sorry, sending an email just as opposed to just drafting one. There is a way around it, and that way around it is to build a custom connector. This is not something I expect you to do. I'm making you aware of the possibility. So we had another guy who's worked with us for a couple of weeks now, Nick. We offered or told the client that we'd be able to build them an integration with Claude that could create invoices in their Xero account for them. But if you go to Claude and you go to connectors and you search for Xero, from the official list, and you look at the tools that it ships with, all of these are read-only tools. Okay, so none of them would permit you to actually create an invoice in Xero. You could request, what invoices do I have in my account, and it would be able to read them, and what contacts do I have, and what's the outstanding amount or whatever, but you wouldn't be able to take action in Xero. And again, like, taking action is where is a lot of what humans do in their day jobs, right? So we think that that is where a lot of value comes in connecting powerful connectors to Claude. So Nick built a custom connector, which is an MCP server that is sitting on a website somewhere that we connect to. The client logs into securely with their Xero details, and then Claude, which connects to the custom connector, is able to take action in their Xero account. So I'm going to demo that capability because I have installed a similar feature here. When I tested this earlier, it didn't work. Everyone cross the fingers. Okay, and the prompt is going to look something like this. Does Northfield Retail exist as a contact in my Xero account, the Kwanda AI Pty Limited Xero organization? And are there any outstanding invoices? So notice, I guess what's important here is I haven't specified what connector or tool that it must use. It's going to go and look at its list of tools that it has connections to and see if it works. I don't think this is going to work, but I'll be delighted if it does.
Is this in chat or Cowork right now?
I didn't even check, such as the line blurring across these tools. I think this is chat. Yes, it's chat because I selected chat at the top and I didn't change the thread yet. So chat can, to be clear, chat can do all of or Cowork can do all of the things that chat can do. Chat is just this once-off thing. Like it will complete a single request or prompt that you're asking it to do. It won't be able to run for long periods to complete like a complex multi-step process. So let's just see what happened. Thinking about that, contacts exists. So this was able to go into my Xero account, read the Northfield Retail Pty Limited contact, and then the outstanding balance. It feels like a lot of our clients. It's listed the emails there, so it's probably used some sort of tool if we go into this thing like get contact invoices. It's gone in there and it's actually requested like what are all the outstanding invoices for this client, and then it's done a small summary there as well. Was there a question? Yes.
Kieran, so you mentioned you guys have built an MCP connector that reads and writes.
Yes.
Or you just writes?
No, it does both. Yeah.
Okay. You said you built it, like, could you actually just go into detail, like how that was actually built? Are you using like a public API that Xero provided?
Exactly. So you take Xero's API documentation and you work out which are the tools that we want to use. Create invoice, create contact, mark as paid, that sort of stuff. Get invoices, all of the ones that Claude can do, plus the taking action ones. Those are then stored as scripts, like Python scripts probably, and deployed as in our case, a worker on Cloudflare. And that then becomes a public app that you have to auth into. And so that app running those scripts is the thing taking the action on Xero. And then you connect Claude to that worker via MCP handshake that Claude.
So there are kind of three things involved, right? It's like Claude, it's your standalone like platform or agent or MCP connector.
Yes.
And then Xero as opposed to Claude directly into Xero.
Yes. There's a simpler way. That setup is nice if you want to if we wanted to. This is good to know because all of you are going to come running for retainers after this. So if we wanted to embed org-wide Xero access in a business, we would do that fashion. We would deploy the MCP server and then we would connect everyone's individual Claude accounts to that to take action in the Xero. Okay, but how I had it working before on my local machine was just the API calls were running locally, and then Claude just runs code on your local machine. So there's no MCP. So Claude runs code does stuff in Xero. Information comes back, goes to Claude. So you can do it locally very easily as well. And I'll show you a bit later in a Claude skill, how I was doing that initially, which was actually super useful. Any further questions on connectors? Cool. Chris?
Just while I'm talking, I saw some people getting drinks. Who needs a drink? Everyone got pizza. Just take a quick pause. Everyone happy? This side?
Zero beer, anyone?
Closer to the fridge here, so they're going to advantage.
Everyone got pizza, being too polite.
Please tuck in back. Okay. Cool. Everyone happy?
Very nice.
Do it?
How are we doing for time? Good?
We're good.
Yeah.
You good? Okay. Courses, we're good. Go on.
I'm just interested, maybe you touched on this a bit later, but in terms, I know you said like it will just scan the most likely connector.
Yes.
Exactly. But let's say you got 2,000 connectors, maybe that's possible. And the more details you give it, would that be more efficient on token usage, for example? And
So good.
not having to scan through all the different tools and all the possible outcomes.
It's a good question. So just to make sure everyone understands it. So like, if you have lots of connectors connected to Claude, does it help in efficiency to be more verbose or detailed in your prompt so that it knows more in a high probability of choosing the right tool for the job or the right connector for the job? Is that correct? So unfortunately, the way that MCPs work, this is probably one of the biggest drawbacks of MCPs, is that the descriptions of the MCP, the connectors themselves, and all of the tools or the actions that they can take are loaded into the context window on every call. So it's very inefficient. And like literally 6 months ago, this may have changed. Models actually refuse to run prompts or would at least warn you if you had more than 40 tools exposed in, that was in Cursor. It might differ per provider. So if you had 4 different connectors and each of them had 10 tools in them, for example, there would be a total of 40 tools. The description of what every one of those tools does is loaded into the context window every time, along with your prompt. And then from your prompt, it chooses which of those 40 to use. So unfortunately, the longer your prompt, the more you're actually bloating your context, your window there further. Paddy?
You can be explicit and just say, I'm still doing the month end on Xero, and 99% of the time gets it right.
Yes, sorry.
If you give it a clue which tool you're using.
Yes, to be clear, every call is not the right. Every thread, at the top of every thread, it loads in all of the tools and the tool descriptions. Not every message within that thread, but it's still like, if it's, let's say 200 tokens, or let's say 200 words per description times 40 tools or something, you very quickly are getting to like the tens of thousands of tokens before you've even sent one message. So the better way to do it, the more efficient way to do it is actually what I'm going to get to in a little while, called called skills, where you can, you don't even have to have all of the connectors connected, but you can just tell it exactly which, or it will work out which algorithm. Let me get to it. I'm getting ahead of myself. Okay, so I'm trying to group things into similarity here. So we looked at connectors. Those are relevant to chat because it enhances chat's ability to fetch information for you from your various tools and sometimes even take single step actions in those tools. Projects is a further extension of this. And I think a lot of you may have used projects. I think ChatGPT had projects before any of the big providers. So lots of people were using projects to organize their work. It's quite intuitive. And you use projects when you have a lot of reference material, long documents, emails, websites that you can like download once and put into the project and ask of it many times different questions. So I think especially useful in legal, a lot of lawyers here. You'd upload a whole lot of long documents, can be, actually tells you here context, 1% of project capacity used, and that's across like 9 or 7 5-page PDFs, I think it is. So you've got quite a lot of capacity. And then the beauty is that if you did this in chat, you would have to load in your PDFs into chat every time and give a pretty detailed prompt about what you've uploaded and what you're likely to be requesting of these documents. So the beauty of a project is that you have to only do that stuff once. You issue some instructions. This is the description of the project or the purpose of it. You are supporting the Kwanda AI account team on our engagement with Northfield Retail. And then you can tell it how to respond. So this will be like, if you're going to use, if you and your team can also use a shared project, you're going to use this repeatedly to ask questions, but let's say you don't want it to be verbose, you want it to be quite concise and always use bullet points or something. Then you would put those instructions in the project instructions. And then you upload all of your reference materials. These are all PDFs here, and we can take a look at them. Northfield collateral. So it's just like, okay, that's an email. Let's go to, this is the brand guidelines. So this might be useful for a marketing team. Upload the brand guidelines once and they can ask questions of it multiple times. What is the color that we use for text on a dark background, that sort of thing. This is a version of a legal document, a master services agreement. That's another legal document, technical document here. So the beauty of a project is that you can go and ask different questions over and over again without having to give it the context multiple times. So I've showed you the Northfield project. Let's give a little example there. We'll go new chat. I'll leave it on Haiku. What reporting cadence did we agree with Northfield Retail? There was a bit of an imperfection there in the transcription, but typically it will actually, yeah. Per the signed SOW, section 4, the agreed reporting cadence is. So it's gone and looked in the documents. If we look in the thinking here, we might even see the document that it went to reference. I've never actually dug into this. I know, like if you've used Perplexity or Gemini, for example, you'll often see the citation in your answer of like what it links to. I don't know, does anyone know, like, does Claude do that? Paddy, should Claude cite you?
I think it's like 50-50,
Because does that mean it's made this up?
yeah.
Okay, well that wasn't a very good demo.
Pretend it's 2023.
Yeah. Let me tell you about this tool called ChatGPT. No, so I'm pretty sure that didn't make that up because that is the accurate information. We can go look in the SOW, but we're running out of time. Okay, so that's projects. Now we can move on to Cowork. So we've.
So just quickly before you move on, if you put a prompt in a chat within a project, does it pass all of your documents and all of your instructions into the context window?
The instructions, yes, but not. I don't think the documents.
So how does it find which document to reference?
It just stores it like it's in there.
I don't know. I suspect it will take chunks of the documents and like test parts of it. And if that part makes it think that that's the right document to look further into, then it will read more of it.
Okay.
But don't.
It's not possibly reading through and just channeling your token.
This is an extremely hard question.
Yeah.
Rory?
Quick question on projects. So with like Claude team, it's like 5 people, I think, right?
5 plus, yeah.
5 plus, but then with the normal Claude or Claude Pro, it's like we've only got 2 people like our team that use it so far.
Yeah.
Right? So then you can't share projects because it's only for Claude team.
Yeah.
So we can't both go into projects and upload things and save skill files and create like a joint project. We can't collaborate in other words. I don't know if you guys know of any workaround for that. That doesn't require me paying for like 3 more users that I don't need.
We'll figure it out in the team.
Yeah. I do think it would be something like that. Like we would set up a bucket somewhere that would, like a nice user-friendly web page that you would just drop things into, very much in the same fashion that you upload things here, like choosing your files and so on.
Claude Code to circumvent itself, to create something to circumvent itself.
Something like that, yeah. And then, I'm coming. This again, hard question, nice one. I'm coming up with this on the spot, and then maybe a layer that sits between your personal Claude account that tells it where to look, or mimics it being in a project or something like that. Was there a hand, Paddy?
So Jack Dorsey's trying to crack this at the moment.
Yeah.
He's released Buzz. So it's like a super Slack with we're all on the Slack, and all of our agents are all on the Slack.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the user interface is moving, or that's where the UX is moving beyond personally interacting with Claude. So eventually we'll be a company of 2. We'll have
You just plug your individual
35
accounts into
agents.
it and you all collaborate.
Yeah, we're all looking at our shared agents and our colleagues.
Yeah, I actually think thanks for buying me time, Paddy. This slide that I showed earlier about the AI native business, this is actually the answer. So we'd set up a bucket, you'd upload your files into it, and you can maybe be able to separate them into different, HR, marketing, whatever it was, if you needed. And then we would just build an MCP front, like gate onto that. And then because even on individual plans on Claude, you do have the connectors, you'd be able to go and add a custom connector, and it would be a custom connector to Rory Pty Limited's knowledge base. Yeah. So there's a way around it for sure. But that problem of context is, at the heart of every LLM-based question, or solution, I guess. So we're working on it. Okay, Cowork. So the idea here is that you're asking it to do steps or tasks that are complex and multi-step, and that wouldn't necessarily be able to be done by chat in a single response. So typically, that would be the creation of artifacts like a slide deck or a web or a document, something like that. And my example is going to be along those lines. So this is one layer up on chat in that it takes a single question, can call different tools to go and find different pieces of information if it thinks it's necessary to do that, or if you instruct it outright to do that, and then can reason and iterate with itself to determine whether or not it's solved your problem yet. So I'm going to ask it, pull our Granola notes and Gmail thread with Northfield and draft a 1-page onboarding brief. It won't just go to Gmail, find the information, and put it into a brief and send it to me. It will actually create a first version of the brief and then read it and ask itself, does this match the user's request? And so it will be able to reason and take multiple steps towards that. Just to give you a little bit more context, and if you haven't seen Granola yet, this is what it looks like. And I've created a Northfield retail folder specifically on our Granola. And then this is what a meeting note looks like on Granola. And you might ask, how did I fake meeting notes? It's quite funny. I had Claude Code write these transcripts, and then I left my computer running with like these Microsoft Sam type voices, but in a South African accent, speaking to each other while Granola listened, and we ended up with this transcript here. So this is the transcript of a computer talking to itself. So this is... Yeah. Yeah, it's fantastic. Yeah, I think it said something about Loftus even. It's bizarre. I think. So these are the Granola notes that it's going to connect to. My Claude account is connected to Granola, so it should be aware of that connection. And the thing that I said we were going to ask it was, okay, so we need to go to Cowork here. I'm going to start a new chat. Let's go to Sonnet. We want slightly more intelligence. That's like when I go to Jonty for something as opposed to Chris, for example. Pull our Granola notes and Gmail threads with Northfield Retail and draft a one-page onboarding brief. One onboarding brief. So immediately there's like a slightly different view here. We've got progress. You can see it's going to come up with steps for itself. Task progress for longer tasks. It might create a working folder on your computer. I guess that's another distinction between chat and Cowork is it can actually access files on your computer. I'm sure Paddy will have a legal risk. No, I think by default can access your computer, but it will ask you. It does ask you, but I've turned off. I've got the caution skip set on. Claude never pauses, even for unsafe actions. Okay, but we can see what's happening here. So it's found tools. I said pull our Granola notes and Gmail threads. I've never seen that before. It's actually identified Gmail as the connector. And then we could go into these tool calls if we want to see if it's querying the right things, but not important. And then for context, you can see which connectors has it used. It's already chosen Granola and chosen Gmail. So far, it's done the right thing.
Kieran, while it loads, mind if I just make a comment?
Please.
I mean, this, to the extent that it's like super clear, and for us, Granola and Gmail, so many of the interactions with the client, 95% of them are either on email and on in meeting. And then you're talking about what are we doing here, a onboarding brief or a proposal or whatever, or a legal document with a client. You've finally discussed it with them on email, you've debated what it should look like, and then in meetings, they've had a look at this, hey, can we have a quick chat about what it looks like? And the ability to get Claude to look at both those, so that's what you would otherwise do, right? They would now look at, try and remember what was said in the meeting, try to look at the emails, and then produce a brief the client wants. This allows Claude to pull from both of those sources. So this is like, to me, this is the holy grail, the two non-negotiables. I just wanted to make sure that was right.
Yeah, every automation we've built at Kwanda so far, and we build everything internally first, and then that we ship to clients as well, involves Granola and Gmail, or Google Workspace more broadly, but Gmail is where a lot of client information is. Yes?
So now are you in your Northfield retail project?
I'm not in the project. I actually just went to a new naked Cowork chat, and all of the context it has here that it's used, it got from these Granola notes, these 3 Granola transcripts here, and there are also 3 emails in my mailbox from Northfield. We've been courting them for months, very difficult client. Okay, so this is what it's made. This is called a markdown file. It's a format of document that LLMs really, really like. It puts the information in a very accessible way for it, but you could very easily, I think you could probably even do it from here, save this as something else, like a doc, a Google Doc or a Word doc, or PDF even. So it's created the onboarding brief from those 2 pieces of context, got the commercial terms. I mean, to note here, I didn't give it much in the way of a brief, right? I didn't say I want it to be these sections and it must be bullet points and whatever. So it's done a lot of justification of its own in getting to this point, and it looks pretty good. If you did this within a project, and the project instructions already had, always write like this, never use EM dashes, maximum 1 page, always have a footer and our logo at the top, that sort of thing, then it would do it even more to your liking. Any questions? Okay, this is the real superpower. This is something we use every day. I suspect, who here has used a skill before, a Claude skill? Okay, so just less than half the room, I would say. The reason that this is positioned after Cowork is that I see it as a way to carry out tasks that you would ordinarily use Cowork for, but in a repeated fashion, and in a way that you get to provide less and less context, or far less context than would be required. To be clear here, obviously this is not a realistic prompt, right? Like I would typically have a long prompt about what the brief should look like, who it's for, the audience, you know, like what the table should look, what columns should the table consist of, all of that sort of stuff. And that is a pain to, if I was creating a lot of onboarding briefs, to provide every time. So you could do that in a project, but that's not the ideal use of a project. A project is more asking questions of a big mass of reference material, and your questions are different each time. A skill is for the inverse of that, asking the same thing or the same process every time, and you want precision in how it's carried out every time. So we would use a skill for something like I just asked, to create an onboarding process, an onboarding page for a new client based on data sources, which are the meeting notes in Granola and the emails corresponded with that client in my mailbox. And you would put that into a skill, and the way to think about a skill is that it's like a recipe, and it's actually just a natural language written document that looks like this. Let's pretend that it's always called skill.md, but let's just pretend it's called createinvoice.md. This is an example one. And the top two lines of a skill are its name and a short description of it, and when to use it, crucially. And those are limited in word counts. I think it's like 50 words for a skill, correct me if I'm wrong, or 50 tokens or something. And it's very efficient because models have very big context windows of like, meaning how many words or tokens you can put into a model before it becomes full. Claude's models are at least 250,000 tokens, and the biggest ones are 1 million. So a short description of like 50 words is not using up a lot of your context window. So Mike, to your point about context, this is what I was referring to, and this is a very efficient way to get complex tasks done with very low token bloat. So a skill is written like this. You could write a skill yourself. Realistically, it's never going to happen. You're always going to ask Claude, let's create a skill to do X, Y, and Z. So just to understand the various sections here, this when to use section is an absolutely mandatory section of a skill. Like a skill is a protocol that Anthropic released, and they said that a skill document must consist of description at the top and a when to use section. The rest of it is actually up to you. You can put in it what you want. But the reason those are mandatory is because the model uses those to determine when it needs to call that skill to complete the tasks you've asked of it. So when to use, when it's time to bill or retain a project and you want to a correct draft, not a blank invoice. So that's maybe a bit vague, but suffices to show that part of the skill document. And then the rest of it is what steps the model must take to complete the task that the skill was set out to do. So it's called create invoice. Clearly it's going to be a skill that creates an invoice. You can think of it as a recipe or an algorithm or a set of instructions. It's a document that you're handing to your colleague, to your coworker, because remember this is still an extension of Cowork. And it should be that you can hand them the document and they don't need to ask you anything, and they can just come back to you with the answer, right? Or the deliverable. So what would need to be in that document in order for that task to be completed satisfactorily? It would be, what are the inputs, what are the steps, where am I going looking, if I need any permissions, what are the keys to do that, what are the passwords, that sort of thing. So those are all the things that you put in a skill. And then what's also very helpful in skills is examples of what an output might look like. So you can put in as many examples as you want. And then lastly, Mike, to your point, I'm going to, let's say you, what's a common use for a skill? You want to draft a proposal. So you go to your create proposal skill, you go to Claude and you say, let's create a proposal for Kwanda. The model reads your prompt, and then it reads all of the very short descriptions, the when to use part of all of the skills that are loaded into its memory. And it determines which of these skills that I've got loaded best matches or best seems to, that it will be able to satisfy the user's request to create a proposal. Finds the create proposal skill, matches it, and only then does it read the rest of the document. So it's actually very efficient in that you can have a skill of like arbitrary length, like pages and pages and pages of written text, thousands of tokens, but only the top 50 tokens are loaded in, and it will only read the rest when it's determined with a high degree of certainty that that is the right skill that is needed to complete the task. So it's this beautiful, it's a very elegant solution to completing very complex things. And I can show you a skill now. No, I'm going to show you 3 skills in a moment. Any questions there?
Did you say that it uses NACE tokens? skills use less tokens in general
than connectors.
connected.
But it's like, it's not an either or, because a skill will often use a connector. So like if a skill requires the model to go and look in Gmail and Granola and so on, you need to be connected to those things. But in some cases, it can be overkill to be connected to, I don't know, a news website's MCP, or I can't think of an example, but it's just a more efficient process of getting the information into the model. Yeah. Yes.
Question for me. So these are all like super useful skills, like plugins, connectors, and things. I'm curious what you guys are seeing with your clients. Like, what are the more complex things that you're working on? Because connecting Gmail, pretty straightforward, it's like useful.
Yeah.
But what are the more complex things that you guys are getting asked to do with clients or working on? If you can share, obviously.
Yeah.
That'd be pretty interesting, at least for me.
You know my opinion on sharing and privacy. No, that's a bad, terrible joke. A couple of lawyers in the room. Justin, if you don't mind, I'm going to ask you to, maybe you're at the coalface with a lot of these types of requests with that very important client we can't name. Maybe you can talk about a couple of the skills you've helped the Exco.
I think so. I deal with a lot of clients face to face or online with setting up Claude and starting to implement Claude on their day-to-day work. I'm finding a lot of clients are getting benefit out of actually creating documents and artifacts using connectors like a Gmail or Granola. So it's very similar to what we actually use our skills for internally. They're finding the same benefits. It's drafting an invoice or getting a proposal written, having any kind of document form, getting that context in from Gmail and Granola is saving them so much time, as opposed to having to sit down, type out a 5-page document, format it correctly, make sure the color's right, make sure the font's correct. Claude can literally do 90% of the heavy lifting within 5 minutes at most. And you just finish off that final 10%, tweaking a few paragraphs or statements, or something Claude, remove this table, add in this. So yeah, that's right now where we're finding the immediate ones. I think there's definitely room as well where tools are going to be built and tools are implemented where our skills are then going to be interacting with these tools as well.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Just to add on that, I mean, I know what you're saying, it's a relatively simple thing. I've yet to come across a client of ours that's got Claude connected or whatever. So as much as it seems like that first moment you have when it can listen to a meeting, read your emails, and make updates to the prototype version is like, wow.
I think that's everyone sitting here is probably like, oh yeah, we don't see that side.
Exactly. So that adds a huge amount of value really quickly. What does happen though is, like Justin says, that extra 10% of polish. So one of our super secretive clients did one for their marketing material, but the shade of green was not a very synonymous shade of green with super secret clients, and we had to tweak that because it was pulling it from the wrong website or whatever. So and show them where we can find that in the skill.
Yeah, I mean, I've got some examples of skills that I'll show you now, but to point out a few others that I'll get to now, idea things just to get the creative juices flowing as to like what you can tackle. So we have a CRM in Google Sheets. It's quite rudimentary. We don't need a complex CRM because in Google Sheets you can add, arbitrary number of columns and store arbitrary types of information. So we have a skill that is called the Kwanda CRM update skill, I think it's called, that I run once a week, but honestly I could just leave it on a schedule to run once a week, which looks at the last week of emails in my inbox, goes through all of them, and also all of the Granola meetings in that time, and also all of the Google chats with the team, or not all of the chats, I think just my chat with Chris, because we do the commercial stuff. And then it determines from that list which are humans, which are spam and can be ignored. And then it presents me with a list. These are all and then it goes and looks at the CRM as well. It uses a custom Google connector that we've built. Or, sorry, we didn't build it. Google released it, but it's just not the Claude one. Looks at all of the CRM entries, compares it to the list, ejects the ones that are already there as new entries, and it says, it seems like these 5 people are new entries to the CRM, and it populates all of the columns from like the amount that you talked about, the size of the deal potentially, the last contact with whom it was, and what you spoke about. Was it in person or not? Are they interested in a retainer or Claude implementation or whatever it happens to be? And it does all of that just by reading the context from my calls and my emails. For the ones that it does find that are already in the CRM and that there are newer contacts or communications between, it will suggest updates. It looks like you closed this deal. Can I change it to closed and change the last contact date and so on? Another CRM that I use quite regularly, which I think is, I need to bring this into my personal life as well, is organizing your Google Drive with, for example, like legal documents and commercial agreements and so on, which can quickly balloon into just being all in your home folder, for example. Like we've worked with 11 contractors so far. They each have a statement of work agreement for every project that they work on. They also have a master services agreement. It's the same for the 20 odd clients that we've worked with. Very quickly, that can become very messy. So we've got a legals file skill or a legals organized skill, which looks at all the active projects that we've got in a Google Sheet and ensures that for every single client, there's a Google Drive folder for them and populates their signed legals into each of those folders, which it gets by looking at the email threads and downloading the latest signed PDFs. So you actually don't even need to worry about like managing and organizing your own files. Obviously, you should go and look at them to make sure it's found the right and latest versions. But those are a couple of things that we use that are absolutely incredible. Okay, I've gone on for far longer than I wish to, so I'll touch on a few more things here, and then because we do need the advanced mingling to commence at some stage. So a skill, like I've spoken about, is a single thing, and the way you can go and read about skills in your own time. Start with the cheat sheet, and then maybe you go and read a Claude page on it or watch a video. It's best used for like a narrow task that has a defined output and a defined set of inputs. So a proposal that must look like this, or organizing the CRM. It mustn't be like organize the CRM and file all the legals and create a proposal. That would be a bad skill because you're asking it to do too many things and it's too messy, too much bloat in the context window and so on. But you can package skills together for like related tasks. For example, you might create a set of skills that the finance team can use, month-end reporting, creating invoices, following up on outstanding invoices and so on. And then you can package them into what are called plugins. And plugins, you can distribute these in a couple of different ways. And it involves using GitHub, so I'm not going to go into that. But the upshot of it is, we have a Claude account with 7, I think it's got 7 seats in it. Yeah, 7 over here. And I've created 2 plugins that are shared with the Kwanda team, Kwanda Exco and Kwanda team. And if I can view the files here. So these are the skills that are inside that plugin. Everyone that we provision a Claude seat for on our Claude plan automatically gets these skills downloaded to their computer. They don't even need to use it. The Kwanda team ones, not the Kwanda. They have to request the Kwanda Exco ones, I think. So automatically you get the Kwanda brand skill, which tells you how to write and use our logo and all sorts of things, how to create the AI roadmap, how to update Linear, which we use for task tracking and so on. So it's an incredibly efficient way to distribute org-wide intelligence from a single point. And the way that I update them, actually anyone can update them. We make changes to the skill in a central location on GitHub, and which is just a place that you can store traditionally code, but it's actually becoming very popular for things like this. And then as soon as it's updated on GitHub, it's disseminated to all of the seats on that Claude plan. It's super, super powerful. So that's what a plugin is. A plugin is a group of related skills. You'll also see, by the way, often, and a couple of months ago, Claude released, I think it was Claude for Small Business. And that was a set of plugins consisting of 35 different skills that they deemed typical of a small business. And it was things like invoicing and report generation and legal agreements for new employees and so on like that. So you can actually publicize a plugin outside of your organization as well if you wanted to generate or add value to someone. Another way to think about it is you could develop a set of skills or a plugin for a client and share the whole thing with them. Or you could develop it as a product that you have in your own business and share it with each one of your clients every time. So it would be a way of very easily distributing those skills. What is the feeling? Should I do a couple more demos of these skills? I've referred to a lot of them. Stefan?
sort of manual to create these skills and plugins, or is a lot of it created within Claude itself? How good is Claude at creating plugins itself, prompted by you?
The only skill that Claude ships with is called Skill Creator. It's very good at creating skills, and you should use the most intelligent model you can use for that task. You can do it in, I guess, a couple of ways. The way I like to do it is to first do the task myself in the Claude chat. So it can be a chat, it can be Cowork, for example, but like you give it all the instructions, make sure that you're happy with the output, and then say, before you clear the chat or move on to the next one, let's turn this into a skill. And I find that to be quite accurate. But you could equally start out at the very top saying, I want to create a skill to do the following, and then give it all the instructions.
It's good at sort of connecting a bunch of skills, packaging it as a plugin.
Yeah, and that's a good point that I didn't actually mention. A skill can refer to other skills. So you might have one skill that like does a whole lot of financial, let's say management reporting of different entities, right? And each individual sub-skill does the reporting for one entity. And then the master orchestrator skill rolls up all of that into one single one once it's got all the responses from the sub skill. So it's a super powerful way. But yeah, Claude, look, I've never written a skill myself. I don't think anyone will. It's going to be limited. You can go into it and make tweaks. For sure, you might find that it got a word wrong or a rule wrong or something like that. Yeah.
Ask Claude to make a check.
Yeah, typically, yeah. Rory.
So WhatsApp, the other connectors for WhatsApp, like if people are, like we're sharing on WhatsApp in Word quite a bit, how does that, I don't know if you come across that.
Yeah, we have. I might shift to Jonty because he's built something for this, but Meta doesn't have an officially supported API for WhatsApp. You can't connect into it. There's a third-party one, officially or not officially supported, called WAPI, WHAPI.net. And I believe it works very well, and it can do like everything that you would imagine something that's connected to WhatsApp can do. Read your groups, read your messages, send. There's lots of capabilities it has. But it's not officially supported, and it's actually against the Meta terms of service. So you can get banned for using it, but it's very unlikely, because when they say we'll ban you for using things like this, it's typically when people are using it for the purposes of spamming hundreds or thousands of people at once. But yeah, we haven't used it yet, but I certainly Chris and I communicate a lot on WhatsApp, and there must be a lot of rich information there. But do I want to risk my personal number being banned from Meta? No. So then do I get like a burner number added to all the groups that we're in? Like that would be one way around it, because if that got banned, you could just add another one. But that would be the way of getting information out. There's another way, which is very manual, which is to go 3 dots top right and export chat. And then you just get a big text file. It's quite a lossy process or imprecise process because, for example, voice notes then aren't transcribed, images aren't pulled. Yeah.
So can I
Yeah.
So apparently, according to the Meta service terms, you shouldn't have any problems if you're just reading WhatsApps. You start sending WhatsApps, that's when you start violating the terms. And the client that we used it for, that's exactly what they did. They bought a burner phone, and then that number had WAPI connected to it, or WAPI. And so then you add that to the groups that you wanted to monitor. And then,
Well,
that doesn't happen yet, but theoretically, and then it's also quite nice because you might not, everyone uses WhatsApp for personal stuff as well. So you might not want to see all of your WhatsApp chats. So
you can use that phone once every month, otherwise
How about the year where it gets recycled there?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm going to, for the purposes of brevity, skip over these skills because I've actually explained all of them or you've seen them. And I'm going to go to Claude Code just because we haven't touched on it yet, just to show you sort of how cool it is. There's 2 ways to use Claude Code.
Kieran, sorry,
Yes.
just a stupid question, but when I'm in Excel, working on Excel.
That a Microsoft product?
Yes,
Yeah.
very good one.
Yeah.
Use that for models, I'm not connected in Excel to Claude.
Yep.
Is that a more efficient way than taking sheets and dumping it in? Or is it, what is effectively going to use this, least amount of tokens and get the right plugin? I'm already in Excel, I'm asking of it to do financial stuff. Surely Claude has already created the plugins in the back end that then makes it work better?
Or
I don't know what would be the more token efficient way, but certainly user journey way, like for your own peace of mind, I would imagine. To be clear, you're asking about dragging the XLSX into Claude. Yeah. So
my co-founder likes sheets, I like Excel, so there's a nice little.
I see.
So we put things in Claude and then it disseminates it. Now
Yeah.
I was like, no, I'm just going to stick to Excel, stay in Excel, and Claude's connected on the
Yeah.
back end. So it prompts me and tells me and asks me, I'm like, okay, just double check this formula, make sure it runs down all the way, and it does everything for me. But in the past, I would like highlight a column, pour it into Cowork,
Yeah.
and then ask it to do the same thing. And I'm not sure which ways I get to the same answer.
yeah.
Which is the more efficient way in terms of data usage and
Probably
if
the
you throw a big Excel file into Claude, I mean it takes 20-30 minutes and you blocked.
yeah.
Wait 2 hours later you blocked again. It's like you can't, it's not efficient.
Yeah, I mean, I was recommending a product called Google Sheets. Actually, I think that the more token efficient way is probably the manual way, because it could make changes directly to the text in the underlying file, which is basically just a big CSV file. It would like change something between 2 commas, but that's terrible for user experience. Because the connector way is actually using an MCP and having to decide which tool to use every time and reasoning through that using a lot of tokens, it's probably going to be less efficient, but I would definitely still do that one. Token maxing is a term that comes to mind. It is, but the cheaper models are getting more and more capable, like Sonnet, for example, which I guess the second cheap is still not cheap, but you get a lot of usage in a $20 plan, and you might find that you might want to upgrade to a $100 per month plan soon, because you're getting 2,000 or 1,500 rands worth of value just in being able to do stuff so much more quickly. That's not a good answer, but yeah, the user-friendly way is probably the least efficient way, but still the one I'd recommend. But for absolute clarity here, how we use Google Sheets would be exactly the same. So your Google Sheet wouldn't be a winner in this situation either. It would be equivalent.
I just, it runs a command forever.
Yeah.
Because it's one of a large data set, so it has to check every single obviously formula, every single file within all the tabs, etc. And then I'm just trying to figure out how can I keep using it but without breaking it.
I'm also still a Microsoft Excel user, problem here. But with the financial models that we do, running to the same scenario, but there's context in the project folder, Claude, and do you use the output from Claude, the desktop app, or do you use the plugin in Excel? And plugging in Excel is much more user-friendly when you're working in the model, but sometimes there's some qualitative context around what you're actually trying to build here.
That sits in Claude.
But then I use the MD file from the Claude app, and I just work between them.
Yeah. I mean, I assume that these questions won't even be concerns in a couple of months' time, because the Excel Connect is very new. Like the Claude Direct Excel Connect is like less than 2 months old, if I recall.
So the plugin and the desktop app don't necessarily talk.
Oh, okay.
It's the actual add-on inside Excel.
In Excel,
Okay.
So it connects, it takes you to a web page, says connects, you give it approve it, and then everything happens in Excel.
Okay.
I actually think it's more token efficient to use the Excel add-on, because I mean, if you've got a workbook with 5 different Excel spreadsheets, you put them into Claude, you're like forcing it all down Claude's throat. Whereas if you've got an add-on, you should just look at that Excel sheet you got.
That sounds right. But I've unfortunately reached the end of my context window on that, so I don't actually know. Okay, so lastly on Claude Code. So this is how it looks in the app. How much detail to go into here? Probably not much. So what is the demo that we said we would do here? Okay, so, hey? Whiz bang, wow, spectacular. Okay. Claude Code, as I mentioned at the beginning, great for when you want something built. It's like Cowork in that it can do multi-step process. It can reason for an extremely long time, left unattended. Like, there are actually benchmarks out about this, and it's almost Paddy might probably know this better than I, but it's probably more than close to 24 hours now that a model can run. And it's more than 10, whereas a couple of months ago, it was like a handful of hours, maybe an hour. So these models are getting so smart and powerful. And the reason that's important is because it takes a lot of code and a lot of decision making to write a big complex application. The longer a model can run for, the more complex a thing it can build. So people who are not developers and never have been in their lives are building mobile apps now for Android and for iOS and shipping them onto the App Store because of how capable these models are. So you may even have seen some of the capabilities of being able to build an app or deck or something very quickly. That's how I built this slide deck presentation, for example. So that's not the key thing to show here. The key is to try and bring it all together and show you that in one prompt, you can have it go and pull context from somewhere else, a set of emails in this case, and have it make changes to a set of code that already exists. So Chris has put 2 emails in my inbox. This one with a change request for a fictitious client about an app that we'd already built. So let's go and look at what that app looks like. The Air Wallet prototype. So it's a mobile app that we mocked up earlier. And just to give you, I did this while you guys were walking up the stairs on your way in. So the prompt initially was, there's an email in my inbox from my co-founder, Chris. I think it's unread, which contains a request from a potential client about a mobile app that they'd like built. We thought it might be nice to go back to them very quickly with a prototype. That email contained a short description of what they want their app to look like. With this simple prompt, Claude Code used 2 tools, looked in my Gmail, found that email, pulled all the information, and then wrote the code. How many lines of code? 4,000 lines of code necessary to build this a mobile mock-up of this app in the browser, which it's now running on my computer. Okay, so that was the first prompt. For the purposes of demonstration, I'm now going to say, what was the prompt? Read my last email from Chris. It's a client's request for a prototype mobile app and build it. So that was the initial request. I'm going to have to change it slightly. There's an email in my inbox from my co-founder, Chris Immelman, which relates to a change request for an application prototype that we mocked up for a client. Find the email and make the change to this application. So let's send that off. What was the change, Chris? Lighter colors. Using Gmail, so it's going to go and find the necessary information. Hey? None of these match. There we go. Found it, Air Wallet change request, so that was the email. Let me read the full message.
So for this, do you need any extra connectors than the one we spoke about?
No, it's only using Gmail to do this, yeah. I mean, you can use Claude Code without any connectors, but in order for it to fetch this information, it's just... And then this is something you'll see often in Cowork and Code. It will ask you clarification questions. So Chris's email describes navy on white background, but the actual prototype is a dark theme. Lighten the existing dark theme's accent. Switch to a light theme entirely. That's what I'm going to go with. And this is on bypass permissions mode at the bottom, which means it's probably taking a lot of steps that it would ordinarily stop and ask me, is it okay if I edit this file? It is okay if I edit this file. Because these 4,000 lines of code have been made across several files. So it's beautiful to watch. But in order for it to run for a prolonged period without your input, it has to be on that mode. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of a headache. And typically, it doesn't do stuff outside of the folder that you're working in, but don't hold me to that. Like, I can't guarantee that it's not going to go and delete your LimeWire collection, but... And there we go. So it got the context from the mobile application. Actually, I don't think it's finished yet because some of the text is not visible. But in any case, the point is fetch context from somewhere else is showing connectors and the chat capability. Reason over multiple steps to complete a complex task is showing the Cowork capability, and then write code and make changes to an app or a browser prototype that's currently running. Is the Claude Code aspect. And you can see that as these changes are happening, like that spend button just became black text, this background became lighter. So what it's doing there is like taking screenshots of this app, of this browser prototype while it's running, and looking at them and reasoning, probably, I mean, I'm not going to go into the thinking here, and saying, that text is not so visible, I'm going to change the background to a lighter color, that sort of thing. So it's iterating. Whereas chat, it would be a single step completion of your question. So this is going until it thinks it's done your task. Shows you a token count here as well, 3.2 thousand tokens, 3,200 tokens.
Kieran,
Yes.
If the next step then, like, let's say I ask it to create a new flow on our website for like onboarding clients or something based on like 100 meetings I've had with clients, like let's create a flow that replaces my meetings. Once you've done it and it's coded something up and it's mocked something up and it's got like a 10-step process that the client would go through, how do you then get it to like actually go onto the website?
So it depends. It depends how your website has been set up. If it was set up by a 5-year-old, it's going to be very hard to access because. So, what would be the most common ways that your website's been set up? Wix, Squarespace, WordPress, another one. Those are all like closed systems, and it's very hard to access the code. So there are ways around it. One way around it is you can tell Claude to control your browser, and it would be able to drive and click and change colors and things in your browser. It's a bit slow and it's very token inefficient, but it is possible to do that. But that wouldn't be changing code so much as mimicking what you would do on WordPress to like change colors and, you know, type a new button and so on. So it would be very inefficient. We think that what I'm showing you here, the ease with which you can write code from scratch for very complex applications, means that most things, applications, websites, apps, are going to be coded from scratch. And what we won't need things like Wix and WordPress and Squarespace, because you can just build the capabilities and the look and feel that you need from scratch as and when you need it. So that means that the best step for you would probably be to have your website rewritten from scratch. Yeah, but it depends. If it's e-commerce, it's not an option because, you know, then it's WooCommerce or Shopify are your only options, and you wouldn't want to go and write your own e-commerce website. So yeah, it's a tricky one. Cool, I'm going to leave it at that. I think we've seen enough of all the different features that we consider the fundamentals of Claude. And I need to hand back over to Chris for a couple of minutes. But please do ask us questions. The team is here. You can show them things you've built and ask them, how do I do this and that? And yeah, very good to have you. Thank you. Let the advanced mingling commence.